Good morning, everybody. Welcome. We're holding Likkutei Torah, Parshas Chukas, 112, page 112, the second column. Page 112, the second column. On top it says Chukas. The line starts Kiba Emes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 lines from the top. In the Hebrew, it's Nun Vav, column 4, or in the English, 112. Kiba Emes, Koyach HaMesavesh HaBenefesh HaBamas. I want to just take the opportunity to give a special thanks to Reb Shmuel Silver. Usually he's not here, but he runs the show from behind the scenes, running the website, the yeshiva.net. So thank you. Today, because we had a malfunction yesterday, he came from Brooklyn to fix it. Thank you very much for all your dedicated work on behalf of everybody who's on for this class or any other class. Thank you. Okay, so the main point that we learned yesterday's class, Monday morning, after explaining what's the significance or the symbol, one of the symbolisms behind the burning of the red cow, the red heifer, the parah aduma, reducing it to ashes, and then that ashes was mixed with water, and that became an agent of cleansing, and not just cleansing, but cleansing from the most severe and difficult impurity, known as the mechatos, the water, the mixture of the water with the ashes of the parah aduma. So the Balatanya, the Alter Rebbe, explained a whole idea, and the main summation of it was that everything in the world has chaimer and surah. The chaimer is the raw form of the raw reality of it, the raw material of it, and the tzura is the form that we sculpture onto the chaimer. And in our world, we don't have something that has a chaimer without a tzura, or a tzura without a chaimer. The concept, you can distinguish between the two, but the concept is that everything in our world is a combination. It's a synthesis of chaimer and tzura. The chaimer is the raw reality. The tzura is the raw reality gets formed into a particular tzura, and that becomes now the reality of it, the chaimer of it. But essentially, one has to understand that the tzura is imposed. It may be additional to the chaimer. The original chaimer comes with a different tzura, or on a more abstract level, may not have a tzura. Physical, every chaimer has a tzura. The question is, what tzura? This table, even when it was part of the tree, it still had a tzura, just had the tzura of a tree, didn't have the tzura of a table. Same was true with the chair or the tissue box or the cup. Everything had a tzura, but the tzura gets an expression, right? Loivish tzura, paishet tzura, loivish tzura. You take off one tzura, you put on another tzura. The same is true also when you're talking about on a deeper level, not just on a physical level. And that is, as he describes it in the parah, the cow, or the animal consciousness of a person, the nefesh habahamis of a person. It also has a chaimer and it has a tzura. The chaimer is the raw material of it, the raw reality of it. And the tzura is the way it gets sculptured by life's experiences. By life's experiences, by people's choices, by behavior, by people's behaviors, by events, inside and outside. In simple English, you have the chaimer of the brain, right? The brain, the way the brain is, mitzad its natural identity. And then there's the tzura. And the tzuras can become very, very intricate and complex. The way our brain or neural pathways get sculptured and designed and formed based on our upbringing, based on our thoughts, words, actions, experiences, circumstances, and the entire gamut of life experiences in every person's life, especially when we're younger, which are the formidable years when people's psyches and brains get formed. The younger, the more deep ingrained. Like a seed that you plant, and when the roots develop, what happens in the roots affects the entire tree. Even though the roots you can't really see, they're subterranean, they're under the earth, but they're extremely faithful for the entire growth of the tree. and an effect in the root. Somebody changes something in the root, even a scratch in the root that has an impact on everything that comes out of the tree, everything that comes out of those roots. So the Balatanya said, whenever you study the Nefesh HaBahamas, whenever you look at the animal soul, he said, whenever somebody wants something, whenever somebody has a desire for something, the emotional desire, the passion, the feeling for it. Not only that, whenever somebody thinks about something, or talks about something, or is involved in something, in action, with my hands, with my feet, I'm walking somewhere, I'm doing something. He says you have to distinguish between two things, the chaimer and the tzura. The tzura is, this is what I want. These are my thoughts, these are my words. When you say want, it works both ways, positive and negative. This is what I want, or this is what I wanted and I'm disappointed because I don't have it. It's also want. There is the way this desire takes on the present form. Right now, this is what I want, this is what I like, this is what I love. It could be, as he said, coming from the Nefesh HaBahamas. It could be even things that are very not good for you. They're not productive. Says, as he says, could be bein behete, bein be'is. Could be permissible things, can be also immoral things, could be forbidden things. These are my thoughts, these are my words, this is the reality, this is what I'm thinking. He says, but that's the tzura of it. These words, these letters that you're thinking or that you're saying, or these actions, or this desire, these are what he called it, these are a keli, they're a container that are containing, they are manifesting, they're facilitating the person's inner desire. But that's the tzura. What's the chaimer? The chaimer you have to ask is, what is the pure desire beyond the tzura? As the Balatanya put it, all the words, all the oisius, the machshava, dibur, ma'aser, are kelim and levushim for the ratzon, for a certain desire. But what is the core of the temptation? What is the etzem haratzon? Not the tzura of the ratzon. I know the tzura, I know the form that it took on. But what's the chaimer? If you can dissect it and ask, what is the person truly, truly looking for? So you'll say, well, I told you what I'm looking for. This is what I want. He says, it's usually not, that's not the case. Because what often happens, it's not often, it always happens, actually. Every chaimer has a tzura. There could be a tremendous distinction. There is a tremendous distinction between the rawness of what I really, really desire and the form it takes on. The form it takes on is, this is what I want. This is what I'm disappointed about. This is what I'm angry about. This is what I'm crazy about. This is what I'm overwhelmed about. This is what I'm running to. This is what I'm running away to. This is what's going on inside of me. But that's already the way the etzem haratzon put on levushim. This is the levush. This is what it's dressed up in. In other words, it's already the chaimer inside, sculptured into a specific tzura. Whenever you'll break down the experience and you're going to look at the etzem haratzon, the raw material, the skeleton, the pure skeleton of the desire, he says, even if the way it's dressed up and sculptured, the way it comes out, is that it's mamish ragam, it's bad, it's not good. It's really not good. He says the muhus of the koyach, the core of this will is, it's not ra. It's not ra on its own. At its core, it's what he calls a koyach hamasava. Koyach hamasava means a power of craving. There's a desire, and this desire you will find is not evil. It's not immoral. It may have assumed, the levushim may have assumed, the tzura, this is what I'm running to. This is what I'm disappointed at. But the chaimer itself, the koyach hamasava itself, can be channeled and harnessed in different ways, sometimes in opposite ways. What happened was that, as he puts it, the ra, there's a toxicity or negativity that hijacked or took, it captured the koyach hamasava. And now the koyach HaMesava is manifested and facilitated and actualized and executed through it, so that the tzura of it may be very filthy, may be counterproductive, or may be quite valueless and meaningless, or may be actually destructive, or immoral, or promiscuous, as he puts it. So I have levushim tzayim. The levushim of it are tzayim. They're filthy. They're full of excrement. But that's levushim. It's garments. It's not the core of the ratzon. So you'll say, no, this is what I want. This is what my ratzon has dressed up in. And because of that, yeah, this is what I want. But that's a very superficial statement. Yeah. Yetzer hara is the Yetzer, as I said yesterday, is the tzura to the chaymer. That's manifest, could be manifested in Ra, or in many other ways, but one of them could be Ra.
So you're saying Koyach HaMesava is always positive, but we manifested it. Yes,
It could be taken. It could go into a very negative place. It could be directed and harnessed and pulled, and therefore that's the sculpture. And I don't see the difference anymore. The Koyach HaMesava becomes sculptured by this tzura. And if I'm accustomed to it and I follow it and I pursue it, so now the two become synonymous. I can't even distinguish between the two. They become completely one in my life, because the chaymer and the tzura become one. I look at this table and I say, oh, there's the wood that comes from the tree, and then there's a table. I see a table. Now, when it comes to physical reality, we all understand that there was a tzura that was formed, and previously it had another tzura. When it comes to the internal dynamics of a person, they're so close to each other, the tzura and the chaymer, that it can become indistinguishable. Because in my feelings, no, this is what I'm feeling. I'm not feeling anything else. The tzura is now ingrained and embedded in the chaymer to the point that I can't distinguish between the two. No, so that's what we explained. The nefesh habahamis itself, like every behemoth, like every animal, its focus is survival. Its focus is life. So that chaymer is not bad. On the contrary, it's a big mitzvah to live. So the chaymer itself of the nefesh habahamis, the koyach hamesava, yeah, is here to live, to survive, to propagate, to make sure I could function in the best way possible as the animal knows what to do with the tools that it has. In this case, with the brain that it has, with the nefesh that it has. Nefesh habahamis, the full consciousness that's given to the behemoth, which includes, of course, all of its organs and limbs, and its brain and its heart, and seichel and midas, etc. And every animal has it. Every insect has it. Every reptile has it. Every fish has it. Every mammal has it. Everyone has it in their own way, right? And certainly every human being has it in quite a more intelligent and sophisticated way. So that core is not evil. It's not evil. Nefesh habahamis is not a bad thing. Ultimately, everything comes from the Ein Sof. But as he explained at length about the Parah, comes from the left side. We explained the right and the left and the tzimtzum and all that, so that it could form into a behemoth. But essentially, that's also an expression of the Ein Sof. But in the consciousness of the behemoth, I want to live. I want to survive, and I want to live in the best way possible. Be comfortable, be content, be happy, be satisfied. And the nefesh habahamis is responsible for regulating the body, for all the bodily functions. Nefesh habasar bedami, the Torah says. You don't need blood because nefesh habasar bedami, right? The soul of the flesh is in the blood. The blood represents life. The blood represents the circulatory system, represents the functionality of the soul through the blood circulation. And the seat of it, Rosh, is in the head, is in the brain. The seat of the soul, so to speak. And the blood, the heart, which comes from the heart. And from there it extends to all the organs and limbs. So at its core, you're not talking about something nasty or bad or immoral. But now think about it, right? my animal wants to survive, it learns the mechanism of survival based on the circumstances of its life. And based on what it discovers, and based on its information, and based on its experiences. And these become hardwired, or at least it feels like it's hardwired to a certain degree, encoded into the Chaim of the Nefesh HaBahamas. So now at some point, this is my tzura, but it's the tzura, it's not the Chaim. So there's a distinction. The distinction is so powerful that he calls the tzura a lavush. Now, we don't really mean that there's a garment here. It's not that the animal soul says, oh, this is my coat. Let me take off my coat. Take off your coat, take off your jacket is not so difficult. The jacket is dirty, you take it off. You give it to the cleaners. Or take a shmata and wipe it off. If it's mamish dirty and it's not salvageable, so throw it in the garbage. When it comes to the Nefesh HaBahamas, the levushim are not so disposable or even identifiable as levushim. But if this became my mode of survival, whatever that means for a person. So imagine I'm 2 years old, I'm 3 years old, my Nefesh HaBahamas, now it needs to survive. In order to be able to survive, it could cultivate and develop so many different types of tzuras. And some of these tzuras, as I grow older, may not be serving me well in terms of relationships, in terms of behavior, in terms of discipline, in terms of connection, in terms of integrity, but in terms of serenity, happiness. But this is my survival mechanism. This is how I know to survive. And the brain knows one thing: survival, survival, survival. That's the name of the game. You survive, because if you survive, you can live. That's its function. It's doing its thing. So now I have all these tzuras. I have all these horrible, horrible, crazy taivas. Yeah. All these horrible fears or anxieties or whatever it is. Every Nefesh HaBahamas, according to its unique identity and chemistry. The worst thing you can do is call it evil and disgusting. He says you're not identifying the Koyach HaMasava. You have to go back to the Koyach HaMasava. The Koyach HaMasava is very, very raw. It's very raw, and it's never, ever ra. It's never disgusting or grotesque or sick. It's a fascinating thing that Alter Rebbe is writing this. You understand, this Maimah is a few hundred years ago. He says, you'll never find a Koyach HaMasava that's ra. You will not find it. I may be right now craving something horrible. Something that's broken, that's destructive, that's petty, that's foolish. Something that's destroying me or destroying others. That's a fact. It could be things beheter, which are not good necessarily, just maybe permissible, but it's not necessarily productive or meaningful or divine. Or it could be beiser, which is a lower level. But that's not the Koyach HaMasava. It became the Koyach HaMasava. It's the tziyur of the Koyach HaMasava. Clark, this was the main nekuda. Why is this so important? It's extremely important because this tells us, first of all, tells us how to look at yourself, but also it tells us what the mission is. The mission is not milchemes hashmad against the Nefesh HaBahamas. It's not a war of milchemes shmad. How do you say that in English? The objective is not obliteration. The objective is not a war to obliterate, a jihad against the Nefesh HaBahamas. That's not the point. It's really an educational war. It's a milchama to enlighten, to be mechanech, to be able to differentiate in a very empathetic and kind way between the tzura and the chaimer. In Hebrew, you would say it's a milchama chinuchit, not milchamet hashmad.
So what's the mission of the Messiah? To be satisfied? To be fulfilled? What?
The Koyach HaMasava wants to be fulfilled, but the first fulfillment is v'chai b'hem v'lo sheyamuz b'hem. I want to live. I want to propagate.
You want to be in a state of war, or in a state of
So what does being mean? What does being mean? If I grew up in a jungle and there's lions all around me and wolves all around me, right? Sharks all around me. Okay, that I have to be in an ocean. But I said a jungle. I didn't say Monsey. The wolves are all around me, yeah? And they're about to attack. So what does living mean? Living means, yeah, I have to be constantly on alert. I have to be constantly anxious. And my gun has to be out 24 hours a day waiting. Like I told you, they once found in the 1970s a Japanese soldier who did not know that the war was over. He was in the forest pointing his gun from the 1940s at American planes. His gun wasn't working already 25 years. And with the Japanese Kabbalah Saw, with the Japanese Mesiris Nefesh, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, the kamikazes, they told him the war is over. He says he has to hear it from his general. His general's already in Olam Emes lying, wherever his general was. So they had to, from the government, send Mamish the top of the top to tell him the war was over, and then he calmed down. I believe this was 1974, if I'm not mistaken. That's 30 years after the Second World War was over. 1945, I think this was 1974. The guy died a few years ago. So when he died, they wrote up the story again. That this is the guy. So go tell him the war is over. No. He was told the war is here. So he was there in the forest. And for him, this was commitment. This wasn't stupidity. This was commitment. Sometimes you have it in the Jewish world also. You have to tell certain people the war is over. You could put down your guns. You can relax. Psychologically, it's also true. So that's where I grew up. That's what it means to live. To live means I'm in a war. I may be smiling, but rarely everybody knows I'm in a war. Internally, I may be in a war. I come into a chassan, I'm in a war. I'm in a bar mitzvah, in a war. At Sheva Brachas, I'm in a war. Come into my house, I'm in a war. You don't call it a war. You call it shalom bayis, whatever you call it. Huh? What? Entering the shalom bayis. Yeah. Yeah. They say if Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, he would come home from yeshiva called Torah, and he was walking home before he would go into his house, he would like straighten out his begadim, like groom himself. So somebody asked him, usually people do that when they leave the house, You put on the tie, you put on your jacket, you make sure you look good, you're going to the office, wherever you're going. When you're coming home, on the contrary, now you're supposed to take off everything, relax. So they said that he said that the Gemara says in Saita, that ish v'isha zachu shchina shruya b'neihem. When a husband and wife merit and there's peace, so the shchina rests there. So he says, in my house there's peace. So when I come home, I'm going to be makabel the pnei shchina. But another person feels he's going into a war zone. So what happens? I get on alert. I start pretending it's forms of survival. Now I start reacting certain ways. I say certain words. I think certain things. So the Alter Rebbe says every machshava has a chaim and has a tzura. There's what the machshava looks like and what does the machshava really look like. And it's not the same. It's never going to be the same. The machshava looks like is you're driving me crazy, you threaten me, you overwhelm me, I can't get away, they'll get out of here. Whatever the machshava looks like, everybody has to know this for themselves. I'm just giving one example, one surah, but there's another billion, another trillion surahs. But that's the machshava. Say, okay, this is what I'm thinking. That's not what you're thinking. This is what you're thinking. Shouldn't say so. It's what I'm thinking. It's the way my thoughts are manifested and sculptured in a particular direction, because that has become the identity of my animal consciousness. I get it. But now, if we could trace it back and dissect it and break it down and distinguish between the chaimer and the tzura, and ask not what the machshava looks like, but what is the energy behind the machshava? What are you really thinking? What are you really looking for? What's really bothering you? You'll see it's not ra, it's not evil.
Once said,
very nice. En yeled ra, yesh yeled shera lo. Now, of course, if this goes untapped and uncontrolled, the nefesh habahamis could grow into a yetzer hara, and the tzura can become more aggressive and more aggressive and more aggressive, just like the little puppy can grow into a very big, dangerous dog. And when he's not on a leash, yeah, watch out. The bite may be bigger than the bark.
We have so many things that are lacking. How do we? Which part of what are the dozens of lacking issues that we have that we connect to?
Of course, we all struggle with this, but the moment I can identify it, I didn't understand the question.
When you really think you have a trauma, whatever it is that's advocating someone else.
Just for the record, you're the first one to mention trauma today, just for the record, okay? I rest my case, yeah? You've been sitting here for too long, yeah?
We that's a reason for the negativity that we possess in ourselves, okay? You say that you should really know that the fact you have this matter, don't frown upon it. Don't get down on yourself.
Yeah. Beautiful. Don't destroy yourself.
The roof is a part that you don't. How do you reapply it to the roof?
Oh, okay. 1 second. We'll see in a moment. But using that word, if you want to use trauma in a more general term, yeah, what's the real concept? The real concept is that my nefesh Bahamas assumes a certain tsura, and it becomes fixed, and this becomes embedded in me, and these are my reactions now. My thoughts follow this pattern, my words follow this pattern, my actions follow this pattern, my emotions follow this pattern. I say, this is me. It's not me. It's the tsura. It's not my chaimer. The chaimer, in order to survive, assume this tsura, because this is the only way it knows survival. This is its mechanism. These are its patterns. These are its tsuras. I may have to be hiding in a bunker for my entire life. That's survival. And if somebody opens the door to the bunker to peek in, what do? I shoot them. What do you want? What's the real koyach hamasave here? I'm a shooter. I'm a killer. No. A frightened little boy who has to be in a bunker his whole life or in a closet, and you open the door, so you become my biggest enemy. You understand? The worst thing is to call this little frightened boy, he's a ritzeach, he's a lowlife, he's the most aggressive. Who aggressive and aggressive? He doesn't even know that he exists. Now, this doesn't mean people don't suffer from it. I could wreak havoc with my tsura. I could wreak havoc. That's why it's so important, because this is the path to healing. Now, this could be applied in many, many different ways. I'm giving one illustration. We can give so many different types of illustrations of how the chaimer and tsura works, but just bringing out, this is the concept. And it's extremely ennobling. It's extremely empowering. Alter Rebbe used words, he used the words that the tsura becomes irama to the point that the person is nimshach lasur mitzvahs essay or lishavos leisur. My tsura is taking me away from mitzvahs essay, which means things I shouldn't be involved in, or schlepping me to itzer, which is mitzvahs leisur. One or the other. In other words, it's taking me away from something or it's pulling me into something. But the common denominator in both is that this is a tsura that's not good. It's not aligned with my own truth. It's not aligned with the truth of the world, which we call the Ratzon of Hashem. That's what's called an Isra. So the tsura is Rama'ai. The word Ra, as I told you once, it says in Tanya, based on Kahelas, the word Ra means broken. Kaisel Ra'ua, a flimsy, shaky wall. Kaisel Ra'ua. Ru'us Ruach is a pasuk in Kahelas. Hevel Ru'us Ruach. In other words, it's not aligned. What does brokenness mean, right? If you break something, you take a branch and you break it. You break it off the tree, or you break it in half. Before it was connected, now it's not connected anymore. So what does it mean spiritually speaking? What's toiv, what's ra? Toiv means the oneness of the world, when things are one, when I'm one, when all the parts are one. And therefore they're connected. They're connected also to the world and connected to others, because it's connected to the source. When something breaks off that source, I feel disconnected. I still want to live, but I have to create survival based on disconnection. So that's a different type of survival, you understand? What if I'm convinced that the only way I could live is if I'm disconnected, I'm offline? You know, sometimes you go offline, so going offline is a good thing sometimes. I don't mean for the Shia to go offline. That happens also. But going offline in terms of the Tirdis and the Mishagasan. But going offline emotionally means like I just disconnect. I'm not, I'm not connected anymore. But this is survival. For some people, connection is pain. So survival is disconnect. If a person, right? If a person as a child with their primary caregivers, the connection caused tremendous anguish. So what do? I disconnect. Now at least I can be safe. But I remain disconnected. I have to remain disconnected. For me, that's me. So the Alter Rebbe says, no, that's the tzura, which we understand how that tzura happened. The Koyach Hara took the Chaimer and schlepped it. We'll use the word schlepped. Are we allowed to use the word schlepped, or it's not sophisticated enough? So schlepped. Schlepped is still one of the best words, right? After all the sophistication. So schlepped, he says the lashon of the Maimer is that harau ma shehita v'himshech koyach ha'mesav aliyas mesav l'ra. Hita v'himshech. It took the pure energy and dragged it into this place. And now I don't distinguish anymore between the two. So I always have to say, these are my thoughts, these are my words. Wait. These are what your thoughts are saying. These are what your words are saying. These are what your actions are doing. These are what your emotions are saying. But what's the Koyach HaMesava? Give me the Koyach HaMesava. Let's go to the core. I want the core of the temptation. Core of the temptation is Aman de Welt. As the Alter Rebbe puts it, that the Koyach HaMesava is never Chet V'Ram, it's at Etzem Atzmusai. It's at Etzem Atzmusai, you will not find evil there. Mm-hmm. It's pliable, it's flexible, it can assume different things. And that's why he said, this was the last one, that you can transform it from one extreme to another extreme. And the same very power can become the greatest koyach hamasava, as he puts it, for dvekas. Nafshi ivisicha. What's nafshi ivisicha? The moment I identify that you're my soul, I want you. Nafshi ivisicha balayla. That's the Navi says. So Alter Rebbe teaches, the moment you identify Hashem is my soul, is my consciousness, of course I want you. I want my soul. Who doesn't want their soul? In fact, the reason I disconnected is because I wanted my soul. The reason I became an angry, anxious, frustrated, or depressed person is because I wanted my soul. This was my soul. I don't know about another soul. Was willst du for me? Right. Somebody once wrote a book. They said, if you're going to go to the refrigerator, I don't remember the title, but the title, it's something like, when you're going to the refrigerator, just pull your chair over and sit and watch. Yeah, sometimes I'm binging, I lose it. This mimer will not help me because I'm in a craze. You're in a craze, Parshas. Because this could be intellectual. That's the issue. If it's intellectual, it's worthless. If people learn and learn and learn and learn, they learn Sfarim, they learn Chassidus, but it's intellectual. They call it Chabad, Chachma Bina Das. But the main thing of Chachma Bina Das is that it goes into the body, it goes into the midas. Alter Rebbe was Miyasach Chassidus Chabad. He didn't to be intellectual philosophy. So it's fine, you have another philosophy. That's not the point. The point of Chachma Bina Das, like he says in Tanya, is to go to the midas. It has to go into my body. When I come to that refrigerator, to that pantry, this knowledge is not going to help because I'm trying to survive. You understand? Imagine somebody's choking me, chas v'shalom, right? And I'm trying, and you're going to sit there and say, I want to give you a lecture about the meaning of life. Some sugar to get out of here. Do me a favor. Huh? Oh, what I need is somebody to take this grip away from me, to breathe. Now start philosophizing. It's maybe a weird example. When I'm binging, somebody's choking me. I promise you. Somebody is stressing me out. I'm threatened. There's no reason I'm eating crazy things or whatever I'm doing because I'm threatened emotionally. There's a threat here. It's not a physical threat, but emotionally, I'm like, if I don't eat this, what does every binger say? If you don't eat this, right? The world is gonna. What's up if you're not gonna eat it? Life is gonna stop. That's what the Nefesh Bahamas does. So all philosophy is ineffective. Even spiritual philosophy, because I have to. That's why his bindiness is so important. Before and after, because you have to connect to it. It has to become real in a very calm way. You have to be in a certain mode. And then most of the times you don't even have to get to that place where you're fighting like a meshugana, because you're already in a healthier place. But even if you're in that place, there's more hope that you'll be able to see it that way, and that the body will have enough confidence. Shabbamas will say, you know what? I'm not such a crazy monkey to not have this control. I respect myself more than I think I do. It's really about self-respect, by the way. This is all about self-respect. The koyach hamasava, you have to respect it. You self-respect. It's not a crazy, you're not a crazy animal. You're not a sick person. You're not an evil person. You're not an immoral person. Even if this is what I'm struggling with, it's a very deep form of self-respect. But even if I lose it, I'm not losing it, and I know I'm losing it, at least pull over a chair and watch it. Because that will give you will give you insight. Wow, look what just happened. Look what just happened. Ask yourself, what just happened? Listen, this is a daily avodah. This is not a daily, it's an hourly avodah. This is minute by minute. But this is what avodas Hashem is. This is what avodas Hashem is. This is what it means to take control of my life, to take control of me, to realize that there's something serious about my life. It's not a milsa de p'tichas. It's not a joke.
So people go off to they basically lost the respect within the system, and then they're saying the way to go out with them is to find themselves and to gain self-respect back.
That's an interesting definition. What I would say is that quite a few people, maybe even all, or maybe most, or quite a lot of people who, so to speak, go over the derech, what we call going over the derech. Well, Dr. Tursky once said, he says, I'm not sure if they went over the derech or we went over the derech. That's what Dr. Tursky once said. He said it's a separate question. But, or that the derech became so narrow that if it's the only place for me to walk. So if you don't walk on my gate, you're off the derech. You ever saw on a highway? It's interesting. The car in front of me is a kratza procrastinator. The guy behind me is a meshugana. The only guy who drives normally is ani. I should be the only one on the highway. The guy behind me, I don't know what he's so nervous about. He probably has problems. And the guy in front of me, I don't know, he probably doesn't work anymore. He's retired. He won the lottery. I'm the only one who drives normally, right? Over the years, I traveled to many communities. So you have Jews, Reform, Conservative, Orthodox, Ultra-Orthodox, Modern Orthodox, Siddim, Siddim Gufa. You have a Vizhnitzim, mit Ababavim, mit Alabavitchim, mit Asatim, mit Pinsk, Karolin, Bells, Machnovka. And it's very complicated, you know, the didn't get and interesting. And then you have secular Jews, B'chlal, unaffiliated, conservative, Reconstructionists. You know what the interesting thing is? Any group you talk to, they consider themselves, I'm the normal Jew. Everyone who's a little more frum than me is a meshugana, is a kanoi, a and anyone who's a little less doesn't give a hoot. He's modern. I'm the guy who drives normal. They say that was once an Alta Yid, he was turning 90, so his wife said, what do you want for a birthday? He said, I never had a car. If you get me a car, beautiful. So for 90, first time in his life, he's driving. He gets on the highway. His wife calls him and says, you have to be careful, because I hear on the radio that on this highway, on the FDR, all the cars are going in one direction, but there's one car going in the opposite direction. So be very, very careful. Be very, very careful, because you don't want an accident. He says, one car going in the opposite direction. So that's in terms of the derech. But in more serious terms, I would say that if there's a certain system that's causing me a lot of pain, part of my survival is to disconnect from that. and to create a substitute survival mechanism. So if I grew up in a system or in a house or in a school or in a community, and there was a lot of pain, it's very hard to live that way. So one of the mechanisms is going to be, I'm going to disconnect, and I'm going to remain disconnected from the source that causes me that pain. It may be my parents, it may be my community, maybe my teachers, it may be the way God was presented to me, it may be Yiddishkeit, it may be all of them. That's, I think, what you were saying. That's a way of finding myself. In order to find myself, if I remain present in this system, what does it tell me? It tells me every day that I'm a loser or I'm a failure. I can't hear that anymore. I'm done. You understand? So I find a place where I don't feel like a loser. That's why what's the worst thing that parents can do? Detach from that child. If the parents become the greatest supporters of that child, so now the connection with the parents doesn't cause them pain, doesn't cause her pain. So the way, so their life becomes much more manageable with a lot of good results. But generally, it's all connected to this. So when you look at somebody of the derech, there's the tzura and there's the chaimer. So if you look at the tzura, this is who the person is. If you look at the chaimer, you'll see a whole different story. If you go to the Koyach HaMesava, you'll see a whole different story. The eitzah for the person surrounded by the wolves is to surround yourself with doves, to surround yourself with angels. We don't have to stay around wolves. I once said from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, Olav Shalom. It's a beautiful story. He said the first time he came to visit the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he was 20 years old. He had long hair. He was very confused about his future and about Judaism. It was 1968. He was born in 1948. It was after the Six-Day War. I heard this from him. So he said he came in to the Rebbe, was around 2:20 in the morning. The Rebbe would see people during the night, not during the day. Start 8:30 and go through the night. And he was a British kid. You know, British they're not Americans. So this was very strange for him. He took a Greyhound bus. He said he would travel through the United States. In any case, so he came to ask questions. So he said he was there for like 2 hours, and he asked the Rebbe a bunch of questions, mostly philosophical, sociological, historical, theology. Rabbi Sachs was a very brilliant man. And he was a student of philosophy, I think, at Cambridge University. So he said when he finished, he was ready to leave. It was a long conversation. He was very, very moved. He was touched. I mean, it changed his whole life. But he said when he was about to leave, the Rebbe said, "You asked me so many questions. Can I ask you a question?" He didn't expect that, What was so much? I'm going to ask a 20-year-old kid from Cambridge. So he said, he said, my question is, what are you doing for Jewish life in Cambridge University? What are you doing for Jewish life in Cambridge University? So he said, I wasn't doing anything for Jewish life in Cambridge University, nor did I care about Jewish life in Cambridge University, nor did I know if I cared about my own Jewishness. That's why I was here. But you're British. If you're American, you say, I couldn't care less. But you're British, you speak nicely. So he said, I told the Rebbe, I started to formulate an answer, which was very sophisticated. And I said, in the situation I find myself in, and he wanted to finish, some cute British sentence, whatever. So he said that the Rebbe interrupted him mid-sentence and said, a human being never finds himself in a situation. A human being puts himself in a situation. And if you put yourself in one situation, you can always put yourself in a different situation. And then he told them that you have the power to be a rabbi's rabbi. You have the power to be a rabbi's rabbi. He said this story when he became the chief rabbi of England, which was, 20, 30 years later. What's my point? What do you mean a person never finds himself in a situation? Of course I find myself in situations. Who doesn't find themselves in situations? I'm stuck in traffic. I put myself in the situation. I missed the airplane, the flight is delayed, the plane breaks down. I put myself in the situation. There's a fog that's coming from a fire in Canada. I didn't do it. All of life, we find ourselves in situations, right? I decided where I should be born, when I should be born. I put myself in that situation. I decided if I should be a Jew or a not Jew, male or female. Well, today people think they do decide that, but I decided who's my mother, who's my father, where I live. I mean, the biggest things we don't decide, right? But this is the point. The point is, there's certain situations, of course I find myself in this situation, but my reaction to it, how I frame it, how I contextualize it, what I do about it, that I have to decide. So he said, the situation I find myself in, so he interrupted him. You don't find yourself. You put yourself. You have to reframe it. In other words, in different words, you're not stuck in a tzura. The Chaimer chose this tzura. You chose this tzura, you could choose a different tzura. You say, you know what? I'm going to think about this differently. No, you can't. No, I could. No, you can't. You come home and you have the same trigger, the same exact trigger from yesterday. Because your teenager doesn't disappoint. So he'll say the same thing to trigger you because he knows what your bitter is, what your shlichus to the world is, and he's going to press all the right buttons. And your spouse also knows exactly which buttons to press. So the same words you're going to hear. But today I say, you know what? We're going to choose a different surah. I know you can't. This is how you have to think. No, we're going to think about it differently. The Nefesh Rabbi is going to scream, you're killing me. You're killing me. I'm not killing you. I'm loving you. I trust you. You're not such a slave. You're a big kid. You're a big boy. You're a big girl. You can expand. You could stretch. You know, when you stretch, you're flexible. You have stretchers here. There's people who stretch. I don't mean stretches. Yeah, people who stretch, right? It's very powerful. The body is more pliable than we often imagine. I don't know if I'm the best guy to talk about this, but you get the concept. Mitzvot. You understand? Physically, it's hard to stretch. I can't. You're killing me. I'm not killing you. I'm opening you up. Emotionally, you're killing me. I'm not killing you. You're opening yourself up to your koyach hamasava, identifying its true needs. And therefore, these machshavas are not serving you well. Maybe for 40 years, they served you well because this was your survival mechanism. But now it's time to press eject, take out the old CD. They still do that? And put in a new CD. You say, no, this is the only CD I know. My Spotify playlist has only this song. Arur Haman Asher Bikesh. That's all. Maybe it's time to put in Baruch Mordechai Yehudi, not just Arur Zedesh, but also Brucha Esther. Whatever it is, this is the CD, this is the music that plays. It's time to eject it. This CD is not essential to your brain. It's not essential. It's software, it's not hardware. So you can eject it and put in a different one. But it's very hard because the koyach hamasava became one with the tzura. So I have to be able to distinguish between the two. I want to say something else. It's interesting. When I heard this from Rabbi Sachs, the Rebbe had a minhag. He would not interrupt people in the middle of sentences. He would let them finish, and then he said what he had to say. There was even a famous video. A guy came. He was Jews for Jay. Maybe he saw the video, and he was hacking to the Rebbe that he found Yoshka and this. The Rebbe didn't interrupt him. He waited till he finished, and then he told him what he said. It's a famous video. Especially you're talking to a British gentleman interrupting in the middle of a sentence. And then I realized that the interruption in the middle of the sentence, that's essential to the whole message. Because we all have these sentences inside of us. I can't. This situation I find myself in. That's how the mind works. That's the machshav he's talking about. What's the avodah? You have to interrupt in the middle of the sentence to say, well, relax. You don't have to go into the same surah. You're not a prisoner. Yeah, transformers, exactly. That interruption in the middle of the sentence, that's the avodah. Interrupt the sentence. The sentence is not kodesh kadoshim. The sentence is the tzura that I took on in order to be able to live. I get it. You don't have to get angry at it, but you don't have to be a slave to it. But like Dr. Rebbe says in Tanya, for a Jew, limud haTorah is organic. It's natural. That's what the neshama loves. The neshama dekvikt sich mit lernen. Because Torah is a yichud with Hashem. It's a yichud nifla she'ein yichud kamayu nimtza klal. That's the lashon of Tanya Perikei. Yichud nifla she'ein yichud kamayu v'loy karkei nimtza klal. Liyos lachadim or muyuchadim mamish mikol sadu pina. The dvekas through Torah is the most. It's the most organic, natural, delightful thing for the Jewish soul. Some people have trauma from it. That's true, because nobody ever taught that to them. For them, learning just meant force, coercion. You're not good. You'll never make it. So they see Torah. They're allergic to it. So again, this is it's a condition. They have to be helped. But somebody who doesn't have that experience, it's lisanig al Hashem. Any nekuda in Torah, because it touches the DNA of reality. It's real Torah. It touches alakus. It's the truth of life. Whether you're learning halacha, you're learning Agada, you're learning Chumash Rashi, you're learning Chumash Ramban, you're learning Mishnayos, you're learning Gemara, whatever it is. But some people have, like I said, that negative experiences affect us. So I disconnect from it. You know, I sometimes get emails from people. A guy didn't open up a safe in 45 years. Pure trauma. Pure trauma. He opens up the safe, and what does it remind him? It reminds him that he's not only not respected, but he's a loser. So why should he go there? So he disconnects from it. He finds a different path. Somebody sent me yesterday a clip from NPR radio. A woman, Sarah Horowitz, a Jewish girl, became the speechwriter for former President Barack Hussein Obama. She became his speechwriter. And then after after his term finished, she became the main speechwriter for the First Lady, Michelle Obama. So she's telling her whole life story. And she says that she grew up in a Jewish home, but a secular, but culturally Jewish. So culturally Jewish means you had some Hebrew school experiences, you know, you had a Seder, whatever, you went to synagogue once a year. Huh? Matzah balls. She described it on a radio interview. Somebody sent me a clip. So she says, but at 13 or 12 or 13, I realized there's nothing here. So I checked out. You know, I told my parents, thank you for the cultural experience, but I knew that anything serious in terms of identity, life, purpose, I have to go elsewhere. And I went searching. And she built herself up, and she had a very successful career, made it into the White House. And she says, and then a few decades later, she was looking for meaning, and she couldn't find it anywhere. And somebody suggested that she should go to a shiur, a Torah class. And she said, what? That I left when I was 12 or 13. But the person convinced her. And she went, and she said she heard things about Judaism she never knew her whole life. So now she completely transformed her entire life. And it's fascinating, right?
She's no longer.
Ich weiß nicht. But it's just fascinating. People go on journeys, right? So she didn't have a chinuch. I'm not talking about people who had a chinuch, but the chinuch was negative. So their association with Torah, unfortunately, is very negative. But that's not, the negativity is superficial. The negativity is not, it's not the chip of their soul, you know? There's software, there's hardware, and then there's what they call the chip. The koyach hamisava, you'll see, is very pure.
Zero Mustel. Why was he called
Zero Mustel, yeah. Bista garnished, yeah. Bista garnished, yeah. Bista garnished. Well, let's learn another few minutes. I want to learn another few lines here. Kiba emes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 lines from the top, 112, kiba emes. Now he goes even deeper. Kiba emes, the truth is, koyach hamisava shebenefesh habahamis mitzad atzmoi, shorshe v'yiseidosei b'kedusha elyoina. It's much deeper than this. It's not just the koyach hamisava is this neutral guy, And you could schlep him here, you could schlep him there. On some level, the koyach hamisava is not bad. That's true. It can go here, it can go here. But he says, now go deeper. The truth is the koyach hamisava in the nefesh of Bahamas. The chiddush in this maim is he's not talking about the nefesh of Likkutei, he's talking about the nefesh of Bahamas. Other Maimonim, you talk about the nefesh of Likkutei, the godly soul. The godly soul is a chelik ilakam imal. This maim, the Balatanya, is talking about the paraduma. He's talking about the behemoth. That's the chiddush in this maim. That the animal soul is not what you think it is. The animal soul is not a chayira, a behemoth gasa, shegetz aferd. Because even aferd is nicht as aferd. We make up aferd mit a behemoth, mit a chaya. Even these guys. Chayis HaKodesh. So he says the koyach hamisad nefesh hamas on its own, and he says mitzad atzma, and that's important because we know that the koyach hamisad nefesh hamas could grow and become monstrous, but that's not mitzad atzma. The koyach hamisad atzma, it's rooted in kedusha, and which kedusha? High, lofty kedusha, pnei sheirsha b'merkava. Like all the behemoths, especially the nefesh habahamas, it's rooted in Yecheskel Hanavi's vision of the malachim that are called pnei shor, the face of the ox, in the merkava, which was carrying the kisei hakavod, the shechina. In other words, in its core, in its source, the nefesh habahamas is actually the koyach hamasava. It's actually divine. It's holy. Hey, why doesn't my nefesh habahamas speak this language? The energy of the Pnei Shor devolved. It goes down many madregas, many steps, many levels. And there's a concept in Kabbalah called Shviras HaKelim, the breaking of the vessels, like a breakdown, where the original energy is transformed into broken pieces and it's lost in translation. So in the koyach hamasav, the nefesh habahamas, you may not recognize its pristine source. So to the point that the koyach hamasava, which is essentially rooted in divine holiness, I may be gravitating actually l'dvar aveda, to something that's destructive, immoral, sinful, an aveda, to same koyach hamasava. So really, in its shirish, the koyach hamasava is looking for one thing. It's really looking for holiness. It's looking for oneness. In the language that's lost, the koyach hamasava, I just want to live. And in my mind, this Aveda is going to give me some support. It's going to give me some satisfaction. It's going to give me some comfort. It's going to give me a way to survive. So why is this so important? When you could bring it back to its source, to Hashem, yuchal lafech libay min hakotza el hakotza, shegam koyach hamisava shoyim alubish b'tay v'ra, yashuv la'avas Hashem k'may shahaya b'sharshi b'bchinas pnei shoyim. So therefore, there's always transformation possible, because that is what its core is. Once you identify, the koyach hamisava is never ra. It's not looking for ra. It's looking for survival. Not only that, deep down, where it comes from, it's looking actually for holiness. So now, even though it's dressed up in a taivira, so it's ora, if you can distinguish and identify the pure energy, you can realign it with the source. And this very same love is transformed into Avas Hashem. What's Avas Hashem? Nafshi v'sicha. I love my truth. I love my oneness. I love my core, and my core is divine. I love my soul. My real soul is not detachment. My real soul is not disconnect. My real soul is not to mistrust. My real soul is not ego. My real soul is not I need your validation and you should lift me up so I should feel that I have value. That's my poor koyach hamasava trying to survive through validation. What I really want is connection, and connection with the source of all connection. That's what Avos Hashem is. Connection on all levels. Connection on all levels. And that's what Avos Hashem is, like he said before, nafshi v'sicha. And that's what I explained. The Rebbe says in Tanya and other Maimonim, a gewaldige word. Why before Krishma we do a whole bracha about the Malachim? So I said yesterday, what's the Nakuda? Why is that the introduction to Shema? The Rajba's question. The answer is because you're talking to your Nefesh Bahamas. You know, sometimes you tell somebody, let me tell you wer dein Seid is, wer dein Tate ist gewesen, wer dein älter Seide ist gewesen, where you grew up, right? I could tell you a story about my Zayda, but it's not like telling you a story about your Zayda. Why? Because my Zayda is my Zayda. Your Zayda is your Zayda. It's about your Baba. It's a different element. It's you. It's your blood comes from there. When you talk to the Nefesh of Amos about the Malachim, you're saying, I want to tell you where dein Zayda is, where dein Tate is. I want to tell you who you are, where you come from. There was a Yid who just passed away, Moshe Kreuz, from Ottawa. He was 101 years old. Moshe Kreuz. They called him Moshe the Zinger. He was a wunderkind. He had a beautiful voice. And before the war, he was to sing in a lot of places. He was by the Minchas Elazar ben Bais. He just died right after Shavuos, or right before Shavuos. So 101 years old. So he told a story once that after the war, he survived. He was in Bergen-Belsen, but he lost his family. So after the war, he left his old path. And once Shabbos, he was staying with a family in the DP camps. It was Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. They schlepped him to the shul. He didn't want to go, but his hosts were going, so he went with them. But the nightmare was when he came to shul, he saw the Kloisenberger Rebbe was there, and he davened by the Kloisenberger Rebbe in Kloisenberg before the Holocaust, as a chazan, as a wunderkind. So the Kloisenberger Rebbe sees him, Moishele, he says, the stender is all yours. So he says, Rebbe, the old Moishele that you knew was Sheneshta. He's finished, he's dead, he's gone. It's Ananda Moishele. So he thought, he'll get away, he'll give the stender. He said, you don't want to give me the stender. I don't believe in any of this. So he says, Moishele, ich kenn dich. Ich weiß, wer du bist. Ich weiß von he was an Einekol of Reb Shayla of Kadastir. He says, I know where you come from. I know who you are. Go to the stender. And it was Shabbos or Chodesh. He said he didn't believe anything. He's saying in the middle of a hallel. The Kloisenberger Rebbe started to cry and talk to Hashem. Almost kiyachim, and he brought him back to Yiddishkeit. The point is that before Krishma, you're telling the Nefesh Bahamas, you're telling me you crave this, and you crave this, and you crave this, and you crave this. Let me tell you let me tell you where you come from, what you're looking for. It got lost in translation. And then you could say Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Then you could bring in the Achdus. Then you have the action itself. There may be an action that is negative, and that's what I want. And that's just a negative action. That I'm not going to bring back with me. That I don't need. That you get rid of. That can't be absorbed. In other words, you have to distinguish between the outer garment of the craving and the energy of the craving. The energy of the craving is very pure. And in its source, it's actually very holy. What I want, that you may have to say goodbye to. You don't have to bring the alcohol or the other meisim tovim. That, have a good day. That you disengage from. V'zeu inyan sreifas hapara. This is the nekud of burning the para. What's that burning the para? Sheyishoy rak ha'efer shu inyan etzem amidas the nefesh habahamas dahainu b'chinas koyach hamisava al derech moshel kanal shu ha'chomer ha'poshet. When you burn the cow, you're left with the efer, the offer. That's the atzmius. So I take the nefesh habahamas. It looks like a big behemoth. Find out what the core is. Go to the chaimer of it. I know that Surah has become very, very animalistic. If you go to the chaimer, you'll see those ashes will become the source of cleansing. They'll actually heal you. And then I don't need the dirty levushim. The tzura in which the koyach hamazava got dressed, I can take off the jacket. I don't need this anymore. It's automatic. The moment you identify the purity of the koyach hamazava, I don't need this tzura anymore. I don't need to be this angry guy. I don't need to be this egotistical narcissist. I don't need to be this binger or addict. The koyach hamazava thought it needed it. I don't want to wear a dirty suit for the rest of my life. I don't need it anymore. I thought that the only way I could live is if I wear a dirty suit, a filthy suit. Now that I identify that I have a body behind the suit, I don't need this suit. I can get rid of it. You could throw it out. Was dafstus? דהיינו שלא יהיה כוח המסבה מלובש בהנויד, לא במחשבה שלא יסיח דייתי לגמרי מלחשב ולדבר בזה, וכל שכן במעשה חס ושלום. So the כוח המסבה can disengage. So my thoughts don't have to go there, my words don't have to go there, certainly not my actions. V'lias oitzim einov meira oiz bera v'kadoima lekafilus etrachira lasas ha'hepich v'neged taivus nefesh habamas v'chol achushim re'iyah shmiyah chulid machshava d'b'ramaisi. And then a person, there's something that I know is toxic, I close my eyes, I don't have to look there. It's not like I'm looking, it's a fascinating example. In today's language, we call this immodest websites, porn, etc. What is this all? People are looking at things. What are they looking for? What are they looking for? They're looking for connection. It's fake connection. On these websites or these clubs or these places, nobody gives you real connection. Nobody gives you real love. It's a fake thing. But for a few minutes, it's going to feel good. So my koyach hamesava is completely stuck in this taiva. And I think that's what I want. It's not what I want. The moment I can start distinguishing, then I said, this is passage for me. I close my eyes doesn't just mean physically. It means I'm not going to these places. It's not for me. And it's not anymore a battle because it's not a battle the way it was before because you know who you are. It may still be difficult because I'm so used to it. That's why you have to be disciplined. But it's a whole different perspective. And the same is true, he says, with the Iyah, Shmiyah, Machshava, Dibur, Maisa. The person changes. All the software, the thoughts, the words, the actions, the looking, the seeing, the Iyah, the Shmiyah. This person gets chayes from Lashon Hara. Why does he get chayes from Lashon Hara? What happens when there's a gossip, a conversation about other people, negative, and he gets, what is it? It's always, I have a taiva for it. You have a taiva for it, but it's not the koyach hamesava. I have a taiva for it because my nefesh habahamas needs this conversation to feel better about myself. Or whatever it is. The moment you free yourself from that, it's a pasminish to be at this conversation. It's, what do I have with this? What am I going to sit? I'm going to sit with chazedim in the mud and celebrate it. Okay. Everybody have a beautiful, beautiful day. 9:30, we have our class for women.
Class is brought to you by the yeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.